and unceded territory of the Algonquin, and you'll have to just bear with me, Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, we may care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. Chapter Chair, to you.
Can you hear me there now?
That's much better.
Okay, it was my headset. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Yeah. Okay, then, everybody ready?
Yep.
Okay. Approval of the agenda.
Moved by Irv.
I can second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any declarations or conflicts of interest? No. No delegations?
Correct.
Everybody had a chance to review the minutes of the June 24th meeting? If so, motion to accept them.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thanks, Jack.
Pardon me.
Seconder on that?
I can't second it because I wasn't there.
Okay. I'll second it then.
Okay.
I'll accept it. Business arising from the minutes. First was the sight line. And I guess that action's mirrors are installed and everything's working good.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
have, we've had positive, Mr. Chair, we've had positive feedback from residents. We've had emails and a few phone calls saying it's made things a lot easier to get through that intersection.
Okay, thank you. William Street crossing update. If
I can provide you with that information. The railway inspector, Director Paul McMunn, who was with us today, he and I had an opportunity to review the order provided by the railway inspector. And we also received correspondence from CPR in relation to the Sussex and William Street Railway crossing intersection, where there's your main line via line, and then there's a CPR way line. And we were able to get things understood that there is sufficient rail safety within that area, and that we would be in 2023 putting some additional pedestrian controls in that area. So we had addressed their concerns.
okay, thank you. The Tweed campus pedestrian, it's ongoing. Have you got anything new on it?
Actually, we're just looking at, took some traffic counts recently, and we're able to take a look at the MUTCD book 15 to determine the type of pedestrian crossing required there. And we're currently looking at this for the 2023 budget.
Thank you. Zoning bylaw, the new zoning for the accepted by council. Nothing on that then? Everything's okay on that? Okay,
Can we go back one step, please, Vanessa, to the old slides component? You're working with Parks Canada there? Have they
What was it?
designated someone to work with you?
Actually, we're in the process of getting all these communications completed and doing survey works to provide exactly what we're able to do within that area. So it's ongoing at this point in time. We're
Okay,
hoping to
thank you.
get something together by 2020, well, in place for the budget for 2023.
Perfect.
okay, thank you. Mary Street,
I think this area was received well with the community safe zone. It's all been signed, and just maybe we could check with our police department to see if they have seen a decrease in incidents of speeding, or if they've noticed things with their mobile reader, if there was any change of habits within the area. But at this point in time, the safety zone has been, the signage has all been implemented and in place for additional protection for those people and students moving through that area.
May I address that Mary Street situation?
Yes.
Some time ago at one of our meetings, there was a concern as far as the school buses in that area. And we had talked of having a no parking zone throughout there. Has that taken place, that signage?
Yes, the signage has moved the area back from the original 6.5 meters back to, I think, 15 meters to be able to enable buses to make safe turns within that area. So I think we've addressed the concern for the school buses in that intersection.
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Jack. And the railway crossing is that standard then? That's the one on Chambers Street?
Yes.
Okay. I guess moving on to the Chambers Street, the review there.
So Mr. Chair, the Chambers Street, what there is between basically the Empress running avenue going down through to the subway, there's a curvature within that roadway that has some concerns for sight lines and for ability for people to see each other as you're coming around those corners. And hence the area was placed at a 40 kilometer an hour. There was concern there wasn't sufficient signage. That's been rectified. Additional posted signage has been placed, as well as no parking on that curve to ensure that there's safe passage for vehicles within that area. So those have been done. We also took some additional traffic counts within the area, and we're still finding that vehicles are still going above the 40 kilometer. The 85th percentile, which is your telltales for design changes, or if there's concerns for speeding within that intersection or area. It was noted that 89% of the vehicles were going faster than 40 kilometers. However, that 85th percentile speed was 48.8 kilometers per hour. So it's less than the 50. So people are starting to slow down, but it's not less than the 40. So it's still, we'll still pursue asking the our police to still provide monitoring of speed within the area and still put up the mobile speed limit to enforce people that, yes, this is a 40-kilometer zone. And with the community safe zone signage extended to be included up to running, that area, the fines for those areas are doubled now because it's a community safe zone. So we have lots of methods to be able to ensure that people will abide by the speed requirements within that area and maintain the safety for those residents who have concerns.
Will the painted 40-kilometer get put on the road this fall?
I'm not sure if it's going to be able to get done this fall. It was quite a weird summer for the paint crews with rain and other things that we weren't able to get our painting guys to get those templates made. So we will ensure that we will monitor that area and ensure that that gets painted and addressed in the 2023 painting contract.
Okay, then.
Ken?
Any question? Oh, Jack?
Okay, this area, it's very unique, and there's other unique areas within the town. But we have received, I think, some excellent communication from some of the residents there, and you know, there's no easy answer to the whole thing, but the community safety area, that type of thing with enhanced fines, etc., you know, something like that. But again, it has to be reviewed by the police service. But anyway, we have I'm on the planning advisory committee, and we've also received complaints and suggestions from the area. Anyway, it's, as I said earlier, it's a very unique area. And, you know, I've driven there for years, and, you know, at times it's a crapshoot, you know, with everything going on. And anyway, this is something down the road is going to keep coming up, I feel.
Okay. Well, I think as Vanessa said, if with the extra signage there and the traffic speed, and maybe some more police presence, hopefully that will help, and people will learn a lesson maybe once they get a few tickets. Okay then, Jack?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have anything on that before we? Okay, the Broadview and Harold intersection.
Mr. Chair, I can just give you a little bit of feedback on that area. We had received some concerns with the lack of people stopping at the stop sign coming up from Broadview and turning to Harold. We had increased the size of the stop sign. The area paint lines have been improved upon. There's a crossing noted there as well. And we've requested additional police presence. However, no other signage has been placed because there is a large stop sign and there's a stop bar and there's a crosswalk noted within that area. We've done what we can at this point in time. Is there any further actions that, Mr. Chair, that you would ask the committee to recommend?
I guess the only thing I would say is maybe with the police department, maybe they can just, I know they're probably over there enough as it is, but maybe just a little bit extra time on that corner, maybe pick up a few, and maybe that'll help. That's what all I can say. There's nothing else as far as signage, and everything else has been done to help the cause. So we just leave it with the police department at this point?
Again, I drive this every single day, and you know, the stop signs, but especially those speed humps. You know, like when I'm seeing the traffic coming towards me on Harold Street or in front of me, like everybody is slowing down, you know, for those speed humps. So that has to be working. I have seen a presence of the police service on as a Ferrara Drive, and you know, as far as that stop sign, because you know, I've seen some people go through there without the proper stopping. But again, you know, we've done the signage at Broadview, and but perhaps the enhanced police presence is the next big step here. I know, realize it has been there already, but
Maybe that's something, Tom, you could just bring up again with your guys.
Yeah, and I can say, Ken, that we did have, was after the last meeting, we really concentrated on that intersection, and it was obvious by the number of vehicles that we stopped that it was a problem intersection. So I'll send that out again after this meeting, and
Okay.
I'll try and dedicate some time there as well. What has
Thank-
anyone thought of one of those flashing stop signs? You know, the ones they have like
With the flashing light above, Tom, you're talking about?
Well, I mean the ones with they have LEDs around the edge of the stop sign.
Okay,
Well, it's something to first look into there. Maybe Vanessa can check that out. Thanks, Tom. The sight line was Chambers and Bay. I guess you talked to the homeowner there, Vanessa?
yeah, I think I need to do a little more communication, but we'll do what we can.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Temporary signage on Maple Street, I guess that section was completed at this time, and the construction's just put over now anyway, so. Okay, there's no other questions on that. We'll move on to new business. And first was speeding on Cornelia Street.
So this, we're not unfamiliar with this area. We've been receiving concerns on a regular basis over the last last year and before. And what we had done to mitigate the concerns for speeding is we put up a permanent speed reader to identify what speed you're going within that area to enable people to slow down to the appropriate speeds. And it has helped. What I'm finding, I did get some counts, and I'll just review those. And we got 6,028 vehicles per day utilizing this section of roadway. The average speed of motorists is 49.8 kilometers per hour, and the speed limit's 50. So they're looking at that. But the 85th percentile is at 57. So it's still slightly up. So there's still a concern for some speeding within this area. There was a request that a flashing amber light be placed at the intersection of Rideau and Cornelia, just to make people aware that there is an intersection there. We have taken a look at the area, and we note that there's a long transition zone coming into the town, noting lower speeds. So it's a long stretch along that County Road 4 of 60 kilometers, or a 70 zone to 60, and then a 50 into Smiths Falls. So there's ample time for people to obey the law and slow down. So we can again ask for additional police presence in this area. And does anybody have any recommendations or next steps for this location?
Was it the speeding coming into Smith Falls or leaving Smith Falls? Which,
Leaving was a major concern. In the evening, in the late evening, there's been individuals, not necessarily many cars, but a few individual cars that are exceeding the speed limit. So maybe if we could get some police presence in that area within that time frame in the evening, that possibly we could catch the few culprits that are creating some major concerns for the residents in this area.
okay then. Tom probably has noted that.
Yes, I have. Thanks, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Harold Street.
I
by the
think Joe
school.
has a comment or question.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. So this is just kind of a general statement about speeding areas and a question to Vanessa. So certain people are always going to speed unless there's physical deterrence, right? Like the signage is good and the paint and the police presence, but you know, the police can't always be there, and so some people need physical deterrence, like speed bumps or bollards or things like that. So is that like maybe the town has, you know, certain thresholds to put in those physical deterrents, or maybe there's engineering standards, I'm not sure, but are those kind of physical deterrents maybe the next step? And is it hard to reach thresholds to put them in?
I think because this area is part of an arterial section of town, we usually don't warrant those types of controls on an arterial section of roadway. So there may be some other form of deterrent, but I'm not quite sure. Director McMahon, do you have any comments?
Sorry, Vanessa, I was just waiting. Internet's slow here, so waiting for my video to come on. So yeah, so I heard the conversation, but the location, where are we talking about?
We're talking about Cornelia Street East.
Okay.
From Union out County Road 4 out Roger Stephens.
Yeah, no, I agree. We wouldn't impose or, you know, use the application of speed bumps or speed humps on a major arterial roadway. So again, I'm not sure what the answer there is for speeding. If it's, you know, what's the frequency? Like, is it a few localized instances of a couple of, to use your phrase, of culprits? You know, my opinion, and I don't know if Tom Blanchard on the call here will agree with me or not, but where we have the occasion of a few culprits, and it becomes more of an enforcement issue for those, as opposed to putting in some type of measures to slow everybody down when it's only a few people. But you know, speed humps aren't always the right answer for control of speeders, because they present a whole number of other challenges for winter control operations, and you know, they can be noisy at times too, with pickup trucks and the like over them in the middle of the night, stuff in the back, a bang, you know. So I just caution this group when we're talking about speed humps and whatnot. But the one thing that, you know, that we're looking at doing here in the Public Works Department for 2023 is putting money in for a transportation master plan. And why I'm bringing that up is, you know, that'll inform based on you know, what we think our growth projections are within the community over a period of time for the horizon, looking out to see what we need to do for upgrades to our roads, and if we need signalization at certain intersections and whatever. You know, it's all basically driven by what our growth projections are in town, and what does our road network going to look like, say 10, 20, 30 years out. So it's a bit of a planning document, but as part of that document, I'm also looking at some policy development as part of that exercise with whichever consultant we get to do that work. I'd like to look at to develop a policy for, you know, to determine what the warrants are for, whether it be, you know, full stop control in intersections, or the application of speed humps or bumps, or like Joe, you mentioned, like delineation perhaps of the center line just as a traffic calming measure. You know, something like that would work. And, you know, you see that stuff in some of the larger centers and in some small centers as well, that presumably they work. I know anytime I'm driving somewhere and I see center lane bollards, it certainly gives you that visual presence that, you know, slow down, right? There's something happening, whether it's a community safety zone or if there's a school crossing ahead or what have you. Quite often you do see them in school areas. Yeah, so there's that policy we're looking at doing. There's, you know, everything from, you know, we get questions, and this group here would probably have talked about it in the past with, you know, requests for crossing guards at certain intersections. But again, we don't want to just arbitrarily say yes or no without some justification and looking at the warrants. So we're looking at developing some policy around that. So when those requests come through, you know, we can do the traffic counts, we can do the pedestrian counts, and look at the, you know, or consult with the police department and look at how many accidents there's been in that area or those intersections to warrant a crossing guard. So those are just a couple, but there's a bunch of traffic related policies that we're looking at developing as part of that exercise. So I know that doesn't really answer the question for today, but those are policies that we're looking at developing in 2023 as part of that master transportation plan. So, and again, a lot of times there's no easy solution to these questions, and you know, I would like to think that the majority of people aren't speeding, that it is, you know, the odd culprit here and there. And in some cases, I mean, sometimes it's enough just that we put out the traffic and speeding radar sign that the police deploy on the little trailer. And sometimes that's enough of a deterrent for people to be aware that they're speeding. Because we all drive, and it's not very hard to get up over 50 kilometers an hour on any road. So that is a visual notification to people to, hey, slow down. So I don't know that answers the question, but that's a little bit of insight into what we're looking at doing for this master transportation plan and some policy development, which I think will help inform a lot of these decisions going forward.
Thanks, Paul. Did anybody else have anything on that before we? Herb?
Just wondering, Vanessa, are the people who are speeding here, do you think it's because they don't notice that the speed is limited in this area and also Harold Street? Or do you think they notice and they just don't care? So it's an enforcement issue as to what we need to do. Maybe we need more police presence in both cases if people are just breaking the law, period. Because we've done everything we can to try and slow people down here, and certainly the visual is very important with the little speed sign there. So I find it difficult to believe that people don't know that it's a slower area there. So they're just going through it no matter what, which to me means we need enforcement in the area to slow them down. Putting in another sign or whatever is not going to slow them down if they know they're breaking the law already.
Thanks, Herb. Tom, did you want to, anything on that?
Well, yeah. The information that Vanessa gave is really good because it actually gives the time of day that this is happening. I know that Cornelia Street East has been a problem area since I was a young constable started. I used to always park at Cornelia and Maitland and catch people coming over the hump. I did that for years. Never slowed them down, but we can certainly, especially in the evening, late evening, we can add some resources to that area, time permitting, manpower permitting.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. Anything else on that? If not, we'll move on to the Harold Street. It's kind of similar, but Vanessa, did you want to?
So basically, we have our, on Ross Street, we have our new St. Francis Elementary School. And it's been in place now for a couple of years. COVID is over and everybody's back in school. So you have your bus flow and you have parents dropping off children as such. And we've had some concerns for speeding within the area. I did go out and we did do some traffic counts, and the average speed that we found within the area was 37 kilometers an hour. And the 85th percentile is 45.99 per hour within a 50 kilometers. So they're well within the speed limits within the area. However, you have cars parked waiting for the kids. You've got buses coming out through that area. So there is a request possibly that that a community safe zone could be incorporated within that area, between that block of Broadview through to the Wood Avenue connection, where you get the flow of buses and vehicles coming in to drop off their kids in the morning, just to add that extra level of safety. Mr. Chair, back at you.
Yeah. Okay. So that recommendation, is that something that come from our committee back to council then?
Yeah.
Kenny?
Jack?
Since Vanessa had mentioned Ross Street, but just going across Brockville Street, but at one point we had agreed that we were going to put no parking signs on the south side of Ross Street, and that hasn't taken place. Now this is in and around where I live, and even today, like we have cars parked on either side of Ross Street picking up students from Chimo, and there's no sidewalks there, and sometimes it's the students, crossing the street. Other times it's parents, getting the young children in this. But again, this is I think a problem area. The parking there, like they have that rather spacious parking lot, and I realize that seems to be dedicated just for school buses and for staff. But I think there's a great potential for difficulty there. And just down the street a little bit, we have John Street going from Ross to Brockville, and there's no stop signs. There's stop signs are on the joining streets and avenues. But again, I think increased police presence at times, because the stop sign doesn't even seem to be a suggestion, in at that area or those areas. So anyway, so that stop sign, which doesn't seem to have materialized. Secondly, the parking on Ross Street and Percy Street, and also the intersections along John Street, Carroll Crescent, etc. There's quite a bit of opportunity there for people, maybe to either slow down, but as far as going actually through the stop sign, like I've seen that on countless occasions.
Okay. I guess one other thing on that, on Wood Avenue there, Vanessa, is there no parking signs going on one side of that street, or is it parking on both sides?
At this point in time, it's parking on both sides. However, there's being a review completed of the parking bylaw to establish areas of no parking on one side of the street. So it's an ongoing thing at this point in time. I'm not sure how far we are within getting that established and being taken to council.
Okay.
I know it's being fervently worked on, and bylaw has done a lot of review of the areas where people are parking as such, and recommendations are being looked at. So, and Jack, we did on the Ross Avenue, I guess there's no parking being placed in between the Brockville and Lyra on that south side, but you're talking in front of between Ross between Brockville and Allen is where you're looking at. There should be no parking.
No, not Allen Street. I'm thinking, as I said, crossing over Brockville Street. So having on Ross Street between Brockville and Percy. Okay, at another meeting we had agreed that there was going to be a no parking zone there. And, to my knowledge, there's no signage to that effect or enforcement. But my concern was even a little bit further on Percy Street, as well as both sides of Ross, as far as parking there, early morning, later in the afternoon when the school day is completed. And, again, without sidewalks, it's an area that we should be concerned of.
Can I add something to that, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
As far as parking goes, dangerous parking areas, I think one of the resources we have to look at using is bylaw officers as well. They're capable of enforcing all bylaws. So they're a person in uniform, and generally the average Joe doesn't know the difference between a police officer and a bylaw officer until they're face to face. So the presence from the town of bylaw officers, I think, would assist in that too.
I agree, Tom. Yeah, the bylaw officers can definitely help with the parking. Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So just further to what Vanessa was mentioning earlier, so bylaw has done a full comprehensive review of everywhere within the town limits of Smith Falls on the parking situation, primarily to identify, streets of interest, streets that are narrow when we have parking on both sides. There's areas in town where the fire department would be challenged to get a fire truck down through because there's parking on both sides. No different than we're challenged in the wintertime with winter control ops, trying to get a plow truck down through and whatnot. Now we know there is the parking restriction in the during the evening hours from November through to March, and people aren't supposed to park in the street, but that doesn't help us during the day when we have snow. So that all is in draft format right now. I know we did review it with bylaw, myself and CAO Morris and Rick Cheeseborough, our fire chief as well. So it's in draft. When it comes to council, it'll probably end up in the front of our new council after Monday's election and after inauguration, of course. So. But I just wanted this group to be aware, like Vanessa had said, is there has been a full comprehensive review and there's areas that we're looking at. Whether or not they identify some of the spots like Percy Street that we're talking about, I'm not sure. I don't have that document right in front of me, but there is, at least from a bylaw perspective, there is an appetite to address some of these areas. But of course, if that becomes a political conversation at the council table, I do know I took a report last fall to address some of the areas in town where we had some public works issues for winter control operations, and how do I say this? There wasn't much of an appetite for some areas to change, but bylaw's taking a crack at it now. So
Okay.
maybe that'll maybe that'll result in some changes, so.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Herb?
Yeah, when we're talking about parking around Chimo, are we looking at no parking for parents to let off their kids there? Is that what we're saying?
Well, okay, first of all, I mentioned twice now, there's no sidewalks there, so it makes for a difficult time. It's not as if the street, including a sidewalk, is wider. So by the time you have parents opening car doors on either side and you know, children getting out of vehicles, it's very constricted. And as I say, there's the potential for, you know, for a tragedy there.
Well, I think we do have sidewalks on Ross Street, do we not?
No,
Going towards Brockville Street?
no. Oh, I'm going towards Brockville Street, but I
Yep,
mentioned
and-
earlier, Merv, it was the from Percy going east.
Well,
But there are
Okay.
but there are people parking on Percy Street, and also that other area we spoke of as far as Percy to Brockville. But that's where we were going to put a stop sign, or I should say, no parking sign.
from Percy to Brockville on Ross?
Yes.
Well,
On the
that's really
south side.
limiting where parents can drop off their kids.
Okay,
Yeah,
I did also mention as far as the parking lot, and you know, is it possible for some you know, to speak with the Upper Canada Board and just see if there's some way that some of that can be utilized for a safer transfer of students?
I'm not sure.
You froze up.
How many open spaces the school opens and collect it down, and that's usually where the parents are parked. I think before we put up no parking signs, we need to take a hard look at that.
I didn't hear all of that. I think I wasn't sure whether Irv had a stroke or whether something happened to his computer there, but I didn't hear all of that.
I was saying, I don't know why, but my computer keeps losing the internet connection for some reason. But I was saying that before we put up no parking signs around the school, I think we need to take a really hard look at that, because if we're limiting parents from parking to let off their kids, there's certainly going to be an upheaval with that one.
My suggestion would not be to put no parking on either side. I realize the physical situation of dropping students off, but you know, whether it would be on one side, you know, or some type of restriction. But as I say, you know, we have a potential for difficulty here. So something else has to be done and should be looked at.
Well, I know when there's been a police car in the area, parents have been very careful on how they're parking and what they're doing. Otherwise, you see traffic being parked on both sides, both on Percy Street and on Ross Street, east of the school. So it becomes very narrow there. It certainly does.
Mhm. Well, also, we have to keep in mind that this is an elementary school. It isn't as if we have, let's say, young adults. You know, we're talking of children that perhaps have to be overseen as far as their walking or you know, going across Ross Street or Percy. The crossing guards, I think, do an excellent job, especially in Brockville Street. But again, this is just something that I think we have to address.
Okay. So it would be between on Ross Street towards John Street, then in front of the school, right?
Yeah, but again, as I said, at one point we were to put up a no parking zone or no parking sign on Ross between Brockville and Percy.
Mr. Chair, through the chair,
Yeah, go
I'll double check that, Jack, but because that was a bylaw that was passed, that there should be a no parking on the south side there. I'll double check and make sure that, see if there's any signage.
Please.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thanks, Jack. Any other questions on that? Okay, the next one there, Vanessa, was Vincent and Jasper.
So, Mr. Chair, we received some correspondence and some concerns for residents coming down through the area and trying to cross Jasper to get into the park. And there's been some concern in that, asking that a pedestrian crossing be placed in that area. So we did some traffic counts, and we did find that there is basically at the south end through that area, there's 4,549 vehicles daily coming through around the Old Slides area. And then we also have an average speed of 55 kilometers an hour and an 85th percentile of 61.6 kilometers an hour. So there's still definitely a speeding concern in that area, and people and kids trying to cross, there is some difficulty. And also between, we had set up on Jasper between Beach and Broadview, we also found that the average speed was around 55, but the 85th percentile speed was 69. So yeah, people are definitely taking advantage of that straight line of Jasper Avenue. So anyway, there's definitely a concern noted. So there are some warrants for concern with the speeds that's there. And we are then looking at the PXO placement within that Vincent Street crossing. And we're just looking at the design criteria for what type of treatment can be used at that location, or what's required at that location to get the kids safely across. Now, the kids can walk up Jasper and cross over at that Vincent location to get across Jasper, to get up to both schools, to Chimo and to St. Francis. So I think it's, and then be able to come the other way and get back to go into the park. So it would be a multifunctional PXO location that would be used by lots of children or people going to the parks or school. Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. Any questions on that?
I would think myself, pedestrian crossway, some type of signage at Vincent, right at Vincent on the west side, because that's where the sidewalk is. You know, that makes an awful lot of sense, because there's I see a lot of people crossing there. And also, I'm just thinking a little bit further down where the baseball diamonds are, the parking on both sides there, at times there's a lot of traffic going across Old Slides. Again, I'm diversing from where we were speaking of originally, but the pedestrian crossway, when signage to that effect, I think that's an excellent idea there.
Yeah, I do too, Jack. It definitely would be a good place to have a crossing. And again, like, well, you mentioned that if you go on down a bit farther in the parking there in Jasper, around the ball diamonds there, again, I guess that comes back to bylaw. There is signage there. It's just a matter of enforcement, I think.
Through the chair, there's the area around the Old Slides, there's no parking. And it's a busy area. There is parking lots within the area that can be utilized. And it's just a matter of, I guess, enforcement and awareness.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I know the signs are there and I see them all the time. So thanks. Any other questions on the possible crosswalk there on Jasper? Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that further to what Vanessa was saying, that so we're looking at implementing the crosswalk there on Jasper at Vincent. and putting that in for 2023 capital, as well as up on Hershey Drive at Air Care. So for 23, we're looking at implementing 2 PXOs. If my internet was faster, I'd show you probably what that treatment would look like. There's a couple 2 or 3 in Brockville. There's one on Ormond Street just before you go underneath the 401. If anybody wanted to take a look, yeah. So if you're in Google Maps and you looked at Ormond Street just before you get to the 401, there's one there. I'm not sure at the side street, but that would probably be typical to what we'd be implementing on Jasper at Vincent and up on Hershey Drive at Air Care.
Okay.
So it's full signage. I'm not sure. It's a type B, I believe, PXO with, you know, the flashing signs. It would be solar with the preemptive signs well in advance of it to warn people of a crossing ahead. And it would have all the proper pavement markings and everything. So it would be compliant with Ontario traffic manuals. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Okay, Vanessa, did you have anything else, or anybody else have anything they wanted to mention?
Mr. Chair, no, we don't have anything else here. At this point in time, I think our next meeting would be determined by the new council as they review all the different committees as such. So we'll look forward to their input on where the committees in town are going in the future.
Okay. If there's nothing else, move to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Yeah, Jack. Again, I'd like to thank everybody, and it's been a pleasure serving on the committee here. So we'll see how the next council and goes ahead. Okay. Thanks, Vanessa, and
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody. Thank you
Okay,
for
thank
your service.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.